Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Today's podcast is brought to you by Linda Martin Results. Talent Finders would like to welcome entrepreneur, money maven, founder of Prosper Well Financial, and coach Nicole Middendorf. So, welcome, Nicole.
Thank you for having me.
So, Nicole, I'd like to congratulate you on all your achievements. Can you share with us how your entrepreneurial journey started?
My mom owned a business, and so I grew up watching my mom have it all, being able to work. And I was never in daycare, and I just fondly remember her making me full, French toast breakfast and working and handling the finances. And so I grew up with that. And so in the back of my mind, I always knew I would own some sort of business or take that entrepreneurial path. I just never knew what it was. And
Yes.
I studied over in Germany in high school as well as then in college. And over there, I fell in love with the UN. And so I was like, gosh, I want to get into like law. I want to be like Madeleine Albright. And then later on, I learned about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I'm like, that's what I want. Like,
Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah, I want to leave a legacy. I want to make a huge impact.
Yes.
And went off to college, went to school for international business and marketing, and got married right out of college, and married someone that had dreamt of being a stockbroker his whole life. And he's like, well, no, like, this is what you're going to do. You're going to work with me. I'm like, no, like, I have this dream to go to law school. And he's like, no, this is what you're going to do. And I believe things happen for a reason. I believe you meet people for a reason. And I really believe that sometimes other people see things in yourself that you don't necessarily see in yourself.
Absolutely.
So that's how I got involved in financial services. So fast forward, I'm divorced now, and I had to start all over in 2012. We had 12 advisors. I had to give my ex-husband the company name, the website, the phone number, you name it, and virtually started all over in 2012 as Prosper Well Financial. And I've made it my own. I never planned on being a financial advisor. I never planned on owning commercial real estate, but I own my own building. And so I have multiple companies. My main focus is investing money for people and doing financial planning. And most of the time, when you think of money, or when you think of investing, or when you think of finances, or when you think of retirement, it can be overwhelming, and money can be intimidating. And that's my whole focus, is making it really fun and interesting. And I think because I'm not so ingrained in the finance world, like I didn't dream, I didn't grow up like, I want to be a stockbroker and I want to be a financial advisor. I think I'm coming from a different perspective, as well as a survivor of domestic violence. Those feelings of intimidation, I totally get. And that's what makes it really unique and different for me. So I've had a very interesting journey and path to become a financial advisor, something I never thought of, but it's a perfect career for me, and I love it.
Oh, that's amazing. So you left Morgan Stanley back in 2003, obviously, to start your own wealth management firm. So did having worked in such a massive corporation help you with the experience of starting your own firm? And if so, can you give us any examples? And what do you believe makes you different from other institutions?
Yeah, it definitely taught me what not to do.
Yes, I think that's a big thing for a lot of people when they actually go on their own.
Yeah, I mean, being in a very male-dominated industry, I was actually sharing some stories this weekend of stuff that happened when I was at Morgan Stanley, and the challenges that women face when they're in a male-dominated industry, the inappropriate things that still happen, unfortunately, to this day. And I really feel now that that's my mission, to even stop that even more. And so, one, being a female business owner, a single mom business owner, as well as in the financial services industry, something that's male dominated, I really feel the sense of like, okay, I've got to make change, because the stuff that happens really shouldn't happen. And so, one, being a woman, we come from things differently. I tend to, I don't want to say I treat my employees like my kids, but it's like you utilize some of those parenting skills and having more fun in the office, or that teamwork or communication. And, I don't know many male financial advisors that every morning they get together with their team and everyone answers, what are they grateful for?
Yeah, very true.
And so we as women are generally coming at things from a different standpoint and a little bit more creative. And it's funny because even this commercial building that I bought, it was owned by a man and I remodeled it. And so my office was his old office, and I have this beautiful fancy chandelier hanging in here.
Oh,
And
I love it.
he made this comment. He's like, wow, you really added the feminine touch. And at first I took offense to it. And then I actually like chuckled and I'm like, well, this building needed a lot of love.
Yes.
And so women just tend to come at things from a different standpoint. And, for me, having that compassion, having that empathy, the creativity, the huge listening skills, that serves me really well and helps me help our clients, as well as working as a team with our team members.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say some of your biggest lessons and learnings have been within your career? And you've probably had multiple, but what really stands out for you?
Having to start all over.
Yeah, that's such a hard thing. I know, I relate.
I mean, one, I started over when I started my business in 2003. And then, to have things like destroyed again per se and start over again in 2012, like that resiliency has really taught me a lot. I also had numerous different experiences that were inappropriate in the financial services world, that definitely like lights a fire under you of like, okay, like I've got to make change.
Yeah.
And I also, for the first time ever, hired a consultant for my business last year. And that was really transformative. As well as prior to that, I read the book Traction. So reading the book Traction was kind of this first step for me of getting everything out of my head as the business owner and really empowering the team and our team members. But then when I hired this consultant last year, it really shifted my framework of how I think, because I've always been so focused on clients because that's what I do. Like I help people. And so making sure that the client's needs are met. Well, as a business owner, I was so focused on the clients, I wasn't necessarily focused on the team and the people I have around me to help serve these clients. And so when I hired this woman last year, it's like the light bulb went off in my head of like, duh. And so as of January 1, like I give a 10% match on our 401k plan. I pay 100% of our health benefits. And it's not just the financial things, it's the emotional things as well. But it's like, it just said this light bulb went off of like, oh my gosh, like, why am I so focused on the clients? I need to be also focused on the people on our team that take care of these clients. So there's been many aha moments and many learning experiences as a business owner. And the biggest one is, I don't like the word balance, but being
there's no such thing. No such thing.
Being able to find that blend. And so, being a full-time single mom and a full-time business owner, I needed to set up a system or some sort of structure to my life to be able to make everything happen, because I was getting to the point where I was getting burnt out, like wasn't getting enough sleep, because I was staying up late working, and I wasn't then working out because that would go because I was busy, shuttling the kids to hockey and baseball and cheerleading and horseback riding and all of these things. And so I ended up, having to kick my perfectionism to the side and start delegating as much as I possibly can. And so now I have a woman, a house manager is what we call her. And she comes to my home 3 days a week at 5:30 in the morning so that I can get up and leave and be in my own head and work out downstairs in my workout room in my building. And so
which makes it better also, like to just have everything in one place.
Right. And then 2 days a week, I'm getting the kids to school and I'm making the French toast like my mom made for me. And I'm having that blend of life, because otherwise it was just this cycle where it's like, I can't keep going at this capacity. And so can I put in systems in place so that I don't get burnt out or that I don't get stressed out or that it affects my health physically?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously you've touched on being in a highly competitive and male-dominated industry, but you're also in a very niche market. So can you share with us more about this and what makes your firm unique and different from your competitors or from other agencies or firms?
Well, I'm a certified divorce financial analyst. I got that back in 1999 when I was married. And I grew up, private Catholic school, like didn't believe in divorce.
Yeah.
And being a survivor of domestic violence, changed all of that. And so I have this niche of helping people through the divorce process.
Yes.
I'm the only certified divorce financial analyst on the NFLPA, which is the NFL Players Association
That's
list.
incredible. How did
I
you
never,
achieve that?
well, I never planned on working with athletes. Like it
Yeah.
just kind of fell into my lap.
Yeah.
And it was a multitude of things. So a client was an agent for athletes and asked if I could help an athlete that was newer. And then I just started learning statistics of these professional athletes, like the amount of times that people file bankruptcy and the financial struggles and how taken advantage of some of them are. But the
Yeah.
final straw was I helped a former baseball player through a divorce. So I sat down with him and his wife to help figure out the finances. And he actually was a financial advisor. So he played Major League Baseball, he retired and became a financial advisor. And
Wow.
his wife didn't work, and him and his wife kept living like he was making money like he played when he played professional baseball.
Oh
And
no, that's a massive mistake.
so he didn't tell her, like he kept cashing out retirement money to
Wow.
afford this lifestyle, and she had no clue. So I had to tell this 58-year-old woman and both of them that they couldn't stay in this house, that they had to sell this huge home.
Hmm.
She couldn't even buy a home. She needed to rent. She had to go get a job. She had never worked. She had been a stay-at-home
Wow.
time. And virtually she ended up with the Major League Baseball pension plan and nothing else. And
Wow.
so it was at that moment where I'm like, this is unbelievable. Like, here's this guy
Mm.
who was a professional athlete, retired, became a financial advisor. He can't even help himself, like, let alone how is he supposed to help other people? And so it
Yeah.
was all of those circumstances and all of those things that led me to like, okay, gosh, like here, it's all about for me, like, how can I make an impact?
Yes.
How can I shift how people think about money? How can I help them with their behavior? There's many days I really feel like a therapist. More
Well, I'm
so.
sure you probably have to in a way because, there's a whole psychology, I suppose, behind that as well.
Right, absolutely.
Mm.
And then so the divorce, the athletes, and helping women, that's the other niche because there's such few female financial advisors out there. Business owners, because I can completely relate. But the biggest thing that makes us different is the Live It list. And
Mm.
what that is in 2010, when the 911 phone call went through for the first time, and a warrant was put out for my now ex-husband's arrest. My daughter was 6 months old and my son was 2. And I got them to bed one night and I'm like, how did I end up here? Like,
Yeah.
I'm college educated. And by that time, I had been doing a radio show every Saturday about money. And I had written my first book and I was in this career that I really hated. No one knew that I hated it, but I hated it. I
Yeah.
hated my personal life. But I threw myself into my work because if I was at home, it was an unhealthy place to be and it was an unsafe place for me to be. And
Yes.
so I literally would take a kid, if not both kids, to the office with me and work. Because at least that's where it was a place where I was surrounded by people that I could help and I could make a difference. And I was
Yes.
somewhat safe.
Yes.
So I was like, how did I end up here? Like physically numb, emotionally numb. And I'm like, okay, so here's where I'm at. Like, it's kind of like stepping on the scale. Like, here's my number. I'm not happy with it. What do I do about it? And
Yes.
so I decided to rewrite my bucket list because I always had lists. I always traveled. I was always just having all these amazing fun experiences, had this huge social life, and I had lost all of that in my
Yeah.
marriage.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I'm going to rewrite my bucket list. So I wrote down 12 things and I committed to myself that I was going to do one thing a month for a year. Part of it was like the thought that the average divorce takes about a year. Part of it was like, okay, this can like be a distraction. It'll help me boost my confidence. It'll help me get me and get my life back. So one of the things on my list was to drive a race car. And that was just for some reason like that, like stuck out. I'm like, this has got to be like my first thing that I do. So I met with my best friend from college and I said, hey, here's my list. Here's my 12 things. These are the things that I want to do for the next year. And the first one that I want to do is to drive a race car. So will you go up to northern Minnesota with me and drive a race car? And he's like, Nick, anything you do, you don't just put 100% into it. You put 180. You need to
Yes.
go to a real speedway. I'm like, real speedway? Like, I don't even know how to drive a stick shift.
That's amazing.
Yeah, like I knew nothing about like race cars or anything. And so he's like, well, go to Vegas. I'm like, okay, let's go this weekend. And he's like, well, I'm not going with you. I'm like, okay, fine, I'll go by myself. So my parents moved into my house, took care of the kids, and I hopped on a plane and flew to Vegas for the weekend, simply just to drive a race car. And you know how when you're on a flight and there's someone that sits next to you that has to talk to you that whole time?
Oh yeah, I've had those many times.
Well, I had that gentleman. But that's the thing, like everything happens for a reason. Like it's amazing what came out of that and for some reason, so my divorce is going on. I'm working, I've got the kids, she's 6 months, he's 2 years old. Looking back, I don't know how I did it, but for some reason I felt compelled to stay in our local book club. And we were reading Steve Jobs's book at the time, which is humongous.
Yeah,
So
it's a huge book that.
yeah, I'm on the plane trying to like read this book and get through it. And this guy's like having to talk to me the whole time. And he couldn't understand why I was going to Vegas, why I wasn't gambling when I was going there. And so I was trying to be funny. I'm like, well, I'm a financial advisor. I gamble people's money every single day. Like, I don't need to go to Vegas to gamble.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I don't get it. Like, you're just going to Vegas to drive a race car? And I'm like, well, I rewrote my bucket list and I wrote down 12 things and I'm doing one a month for a year. And this is my first one. And he's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. He's like, you're so young. Is it cancer?
Oh my gosh.
I will then stop talking.
Yeah.
But the light bulb went on for me and I'm like, I'm not going to be able to do this. Like, I'm not going to be able to do this for a year, telling people that I'm doing something on my bucket list, because when you say bucket list, they think you're dying.
Yeah.
So I came up with the Live It list. I then learned, and so I continued to do one thing a month. And then after that year, I kept doing things because one, I felt this excitement. I realized it was boosting my confidence. I was getting my life back. I was getting me back. And then after that, I really learned some more statistics. I learned that 1 in 3 Americans is happy. I learned that if you spend more money on experiences, you're going to be happier than if you spend money on things.
Absolutely.
So now the Live It list, I've trademarked it. I have my own foundation. We grant Live It list experiences. Every client that comes to us, yes, we ask, get them to retirement, kids to college, all of those things. But we ask what's on your Live It list, and we put that in their financial plan. And we actually just came out with these Live It list journals to help people write down what's on their Live It list and track all their experiences so that they're focused on being happy. And so it's just amazing how something that came out of this dark time in my life is such this force to now help people across the world be happier with their life and be happier with their money.
Absolutely. So within that, you're obviously very multi-talented and an author of 5 books, which is incredible. So was the transition into writing books an organic process for you, or was it a challenge? Because obviously writing for some people is very challenging. So I'm just interested to know what that process was like for you.
Yeah, I mean, writing for me comes naturally. Like, I love to write. I love to journal. Writing a book is a challenge.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And probably takes a lot of dedication and focus.
Yes, and a lot of time. And how I write is I'll be on a plane and I hand write everything. And so generally I'm on a plane for, 2 hours or so that I'm writing. and then I'm off the plane. And then, a few days later is when I'm going back and writing more. And so the hardest part for me is taking all of these amazing thoughts and these amazing stories. And that's why I've always had amazing editors over the years to take my stuff and put it together. But I grew up, I loved writing. I had gone to a journalism camp. I had always had this interest in being a TV anchor. Really was my original goal when I was growing up. And so I went to this school that had, I was an anchor on our school TV program. I was the editor of the school paper. And so writing just always came fairly naturally to me, but writing a book was a completely different story and completely a challenge. But it started all from all of that background growing up as a kid and loving to write. But really what it came from is when I was doing my radio show, people are like, gosh, you have so much information. You have so much content, and you're funny and you're personable and you make money fun. Like, where's your book? And so it's just all these people kept asking, where's your book? Where's your book? Where's your book? I'm like, okay, better write a book. I've always wanted to write a book. Like, how cool would this be? So I wrote my book, and then no one tells you once you write a book that you keep then need to writing more books, because once your book is out, then they're like, oh, when's your next book coming out? So it's, my last book that I wrote was Who Pays? Navigating Love and Money. And that was my favorite. It was the longest project. It took me about 4 years, really 5 years to write it. But it came from the concept of being a single person and dating and the trials and tribulations that happen when it comes to love and money. But what happened is once I started writing this, clients found out that I was writing a book on dating and money. And there was one client in particular that when I had met them, they both came into my office, and he's like, I'm done. I can't manage the money anymore. Like, I need to relinquish this to someone, and we'd like to use you, meaning me. And so what happened was they were both very high income, but even though they were high income, they were spending all of their income.
Yes.
And what would happen is they would refinance their house, pay off all the debts, and then refinance the house, pay off the credit card debts again, refinance the house, pay off the credit card debts again. And so the third time that this happened, he's like, I'm done. Like, we can't keep refinancing our house and getting us out of credit card debt. Like, this is a bad pattern and we've got to stop it. So they came in, they sat down, and their homework assignment was to start working on a budget, but she needed to go home and take her credit cards and take a glass of water, put the credit cards in the glass of water and put them in the freezer.
Yes.
They needed to change their behavior and stop using the credit cards and change how they worked with money.
Yes.
So cut their budget like no tomorrow. I helped them with their budget. Fast forward, a few years later, they hear that I'm writing this book on dating and money. And she comments to me, she's like, do you know that you saved our marriage?
Wow, that's amazing.
And it was this light bulb of like, oh my gosh, this is not just a dating and money book. This is about relationships and how can you have a healthy relationship with money with yourself. How can you have a healthy relationship with money with your significant other or whomever? And so then from the dating and money book, we even came up with these conversation cards. It's a deck of cards. There's 52 of them, and it's all questions related to money. Where do you want to be a year from now? Where do you want to be 10 years from now? If you won $1 million, what would you do with it? Are you a spender or are you a saver? And the whole concept is to help people have their money dates and be on the same page, or at least respect where your significant other is and where they're coming from with money.
Yeah, absolutely. So that leads me to obviously the current situation, which we've been in since COVID-19 has obviously turned our worlds upside down and inside out. So how has this impacted you both personally as well as professionally? And has this created new opportunities? And can you give us any examples?
Well, so we host an event called Prosper Wine and Women. And that event was just in my building. And so when COVID hit, we took it virtually. And so it was amazing that there were people all across the world tuning in to an event that originally was just local here in Minneapolis. Yeah. And I always have tons of posts on social media. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I have webinars, I'm always on radio and TV. being interviewed on podcasts, various different things. And so one of the things was I should really be sending out more emails to clients utilizing video. And so
Yes.
one of the things that happened was my daughter decided there was a thing here locally that people were giving baskets of like wine and snacks and goodies to primarily people that were, nurses or working the front lines. And so my daughter and I handed out tons of these baskets to various different people. And after doing it for a little bit, she's like, Mom, we got to make this more fun.
Yes.
So she put on an inflatable T-Rex costume that was like,
Wow. Love it.
and was walking down the street carrying these baskets and delivering them. And so I took a video of her. She was delivering one to a nurse at the local hospital. And this woman lived in an apartment building. So she's in this huge T-Rex costume carrying this basket of wine and snacks and all sorts of goodies that this woman likes up 3 flights of stairs into her apartment, and then leaves it, knocks on the door, and we run. So I videoed this and I sent it out in an email of like, hey, times are really tough. Because particularly this was also during the George Floyd time as well.
Yes. So it's pretty intense time.
Intense. And so I sent this out and I said, here's things that are important to know about what's going on with life and about what's happening with the market. But here's a little video, showing you some that'll hopefully bring you some joy.
Yes.
And a man that was a firefighter, volunteer firefighter, he was involved that whole weekend. He had been up for 3 days with everything happening with George Floyd. And he emailed back right after I sent it. And he's like, Nicole, he goes, you will not believe this. He's like, that was the best video. He goes, we've been up for 3 days. He goes, I showed this to the other firefighters, and it just gave them this moment of laughter and this moment of happiness. And so it was I tried to do things like that, and we still continue to do things like that to bring some levity to the situation, or to really help people like either shift their mind off of it for a minute or find the good things out of it. And
Yeah,
overall,
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. Like you said earlier, you can take something that's really bad and turn it into a positive. So,
right. And
yeah.
overall, with my kids and in my life, I've been a lot less strict. Like I was raised in such a strict environment, and I kept having conversations with clients. There were kids, one in particular, and I've got the chills as I'm thinking about it. A client's neighbor's teenager committed suicide. And she then was like, oh my gosh, like that could have easily been me and been my kid. And so her and I had this conversation, and we both kind of committed to just asking our kids, are they happy? Like rather than, did you, the whole e-learning, all of that stuff, like not on them so much, like you didn't do your homework. And like, I just started asking my kids, like, how you feeling? Are you happy? And it really shifted things for me in my business and with my team members, with clients. And I felt like definitely much even more of a therapist of helping people through the financial ramifications of this, having to sit down and have a conversation with a restaurant owner and helping her figure out which restaurant she should close. People thinking that they were going to retire in 7 years, and all of a sudden they're getting laid off and they're not finding another job. These were very, and still are, very difficult times and life-changing times for people, and just being even more of an avid listener and helping people through these difficult times.
Yeah, absolutely. So within that, what would you say some of your biggest career highlights have been? And what stands out for you the most?
Going out on my own, like leaving Morgan Stanley in 2003, starting my own business. And in January of next year, it'll be 20 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
Oh my gosh, like I did it. Like I left a company, I started my own business, and I've made it.
Yes.
And buying my own commercial building. I remember the night before I bought this building, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, I'm the sole provider for these two little kids. Like, what if, your negative voices start, chiming in your head. And buying this commercial building was the best thing that I could have done for my team, for our clients, for just my own personal schedule and being able to have a workout facility for myself, let alone for our team. But buying a building, like, as a single mom, there isn't another single mom that I know of that is in my situation that bought a building. And so that was super, super empowering for me. And then just being on national TV and some of the speaking engagements that I've done, when you're speaking for a group of 1,000 people and having that is such a highlight, because it's not that you're speaking to tons of people. It's that you have that one-on-one connection with your audience via Zoom or in person.
Yeah.
And you're making an impact. If I can help one person and that one person then can help someone else or help someone else, like, that's so rewarding for me.
Absolutely. So having written books, presented at conferences and appeared in the media, as you've just mentioned, do you believe that this has opened other business opportunities for you? And can you give us any examples?
Yeah, I recently did a Zoom presentation, and the talk that I've been giving the most is about living life to the fullest. And so it tells the Live It List story, goes more in depth, shares, lots of statistics of people and happiness, and gives tips of how do you find happiness. And so that's the most popular presentation that I've been giving. And so it was about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3, that I did that for a fairly large company, and it was on via Zoom. And afterwards, some people went to my website, NicoleMiddendorf.com, and bought, some sweatshirts and bought some of my books and such. And the journal had just come out. And so some women also followed, and it wasn't yet on the website. We got it up the next day, but some of these women followed up and they're like, I want that journal. I want that journal. Well, now this company wants to have a deeper wellness program and purchase these employees. And so that's, am I here to sell stuff? No, I'm a financial advisor. I'm here to give advice. But if I can give someone a tool that can help them learn more, or help them be happier, or help them be better, or live that life fuller, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. So one of obviously the things that you're deeply passionate about is also philanthropy. So can you share with us more about the causes you're involved with and why and what they mean to you, or why they mean so much to you?
So August 4th of 2010 is when the 911 phone call went out that actually went through. And when the police came to my home, they handed me a card. And, my daughter's on my hip. She's 6 months old. My son was like standing right by my side. And they handed me a card to the local women's domestic violence shelter place. And I was very familiar with this organization because I volunteered a lot there. I taught there called Divorce Dollars and Cents. And so they handed me this card and they're like, here you go, call them, like, good luck. And so I packed up the stuff. I packed up, the kids' bags and everything, the diaper bags. And I went to my mom's, and I called my mom, and like, my parents knew, like, my mom was like, we've been waiting for this phone call to happen, unfortunately. And so I drove to their house. And after I called my mom and said, hey, I'm on my way with the 2 kids, can I stay the night? I called this domestic violence shelter. And the woman said, do you have a place to stay? Like, you sure can come here. I'm like, no, like, I'm going to my mom's. And she's like, are you sure? Like, are you sure you will feel safe there? And that was one of the mistakes that I made. I actually should have gone to the shelter that night.
Yes.
But I didn't. And so I went to my parents, and they said, we'll connect you with an advocate the next morning. So I got connected with this woman, and the court stuff started, and everything just became super messy and gross. And then eventually a divorce started. But I made mistake after mistake after mistake. And the irony of all of this is, I have 2 amazing parents. I
Yes.
have, such great friends and a great support system. I lost a lot of that because I was so isolated at that time, but I was like, reaching out to these people that were, knew my history and were close friends of mine, college educated, lived in a
Mm.
wealthy community, looking back, like I should have it all together. I mean, what domestic violence, survivor does though, obviously, because you
Yeah.
lost yourself. And so
Mm.
when that happened, I was like, I need to fix this. Like when I get out of this, like I need to fix this. Like I
Mm.
wanted just when the police come to your house that you're not just handed this card and like, good luck figuring it out.
Mm.
It's such an emotional process. And so I started my own foundation a handful of years ago. Now my foundation, we're actually at the point that we pick women and we help them for a whole year.
Wow, that's
So,
amazing.
so last year was our first year. We had 2 women, and these women are nominated. So anyone can nominate anyone.
Yeah.
And these 2 women that we selected last year, one was out of her domestic violence situation for a long period of time and just couldn't get back.
Mm.
And she was just spiraling. The other woman was in a pretty dangerous situation and just didn't feel like she could get out,
Mm.
primarily because of the finances, because
Yeah, of course.
yeah. And so we helped these women. And what happened was, is we first just started with a Zoom, what do you need? How can we help you? And the one woman, had such fear of money. She hadn't
Mm.
filed a tax return in 6 years.
Oh,
So
shame.
we pulled in a CPA, we pulled in a life coach, we pulled in a business coach because she was thinking maybe she'd start a business. We pulled an attorney, and then myself as the financial person. We then had a Zoom together. We're like, okay, how can we help you for this whole year?
Mm.
And then same with the other woman, and both of them had kind of different focuses. The one was, more focused with the therapist and the coach to help her get to the point that she could actually get out of the relationship. And she filed eventually for the divorce. And I'm still in contact with her. They now have mediation next month. But the empowerment that this woman had was just so amazing. And what happens, and once we get close to the end of the year, is we take them to the Mall of America with $1,000 shopping spree.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
I'm there paying for it. And then we have a stylist there that's helping them, dress right. And it could be, one woman was focused more on, career types of clothes. The other woman was just like, I have nothing and I need to start somewhere.
Yes.
And then we then take them both to a salon, and the salon donates a haircut, makeover, all of those types of things. And so the whole concept is, rather than here's a card, good luck, it's okay, here's this group of people that is here for you for a whole year to help you figure this out and help you get back on your feet and to surround you so that you don't make the mistakes that I made.
Yeah,
Affect me negatively still every day.
for sure.
The main focus of the foundation is that domestic violence piece and helping these women, but we adopt families at the end of the year and give gifts. But the whole focus is domestic violence as well as financial literacy. And it's just it's all about helping people and helping people that, just need that extra little boost.
Absolutely. And it's so important because so many people are lost when they're in these situations. So I want to talk about leadership or lack of leadership from both an entrepreneurial and global perspective. So what makes your leadership style different, and what do you think needs to change in the current narrative?
Being a female.
Yes, we all have those challenges.
Definitely. I'm such a great listener as well as I'm so creative.
Yes.
And that I really appreciate everything so much. And
Yes.
it comes from, being involved in domestic violence. Like, I just love being able to wake up in the morning and be able to be happy. And so that's my whole focus for our clients, let alone for our team, and really making sure that like, it's not just punching a clock and like getting things done. We have office hours, we're open 8 to 5, Monday through Thursday, 8 to 3 on Fridays. But to me, like, yes, we're open and we have the stock market, we're dealing with that. But what I care about is that a client's needs are met. And so if a
Yes.
client emails, I respond on the weekend. A client emails something and they've got a question, I respond back like, on Monday, so and here I CC'd so and so, and they'll get on it. So that the whole concept is that people feel appreciated and people feel cared about. And we
Yes.
had just had our client advisory board meeting, and that was one of the strong themes that came across was our clients were like, look, you get back to us.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times in my own life have I called somewhere and left a message and like this place I'm paying for service, like doesn't even get back to me. Like, and I have
No.
to remember to like call them back. And I
Yes.
never want anyone that's connected with Prosper World to have that kind of experience.
No.
And I share a lot of experiences that I have that it's like, this is what we don't want to do to make sure that we're going above and beyond. I call it the WOW program. I want our clients to say physically, actually say wow,
Yes.
as well as I want our team members to say wow.
Absolutely. So financial education is so critical, and we live in a consumer culture and society where people live this narrative. So do you think this has changed during the pandemic with people becoming more conscious of investment and spending?
I feel like people were more conscious in the beginning and now they're not. I feel like there's this pent up, like, I didn't get this for so long
Yeah.
that I'm going to go do it now, no matter what the cost is.
Yeah.
I also feel like there's this focus of, okay, let me be happy more, like not necessarily
Yes.
looking at the price tag of things. And I recently wrote, from time to time, I write various different articles because it happened once that I took my kids to Disney. And when we were there, I just was like, the amount of money that this costs, I'm like, this is crazy. Like if you take the average income that someone has, the average person can't afford to go to Disney. And I wrote an article and then I was even on TV about this because when I grew up, I never went to Disney because my parents said like, we can't afford it.
Yeah.
And we don't live in a society like that anymore. People don't say no.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, people don't say no to their kids. They just go do. And then they put on credit cards or they sacrifice their own retirement or they get into a lot of debt and, are in a not good financial place. And so there's this big thing. And I wrote a thing on LinkedIn about it the other day, like this focus of like having to keep up with the Joneses and like this social media, this Instagram life, like people are posting all these amazing, crazy travel experiences that they're having, or these things that they're buying. And, it's like,
which is creating mental health issues too for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah. Because when I grew up, no one had a Louis Vuitton purse.
No.
Like everyone has one.
Yeah.
And I find it just fascinating and very sad at the same standpoint.
Yeah.
Because like you just said, it's a mental health piece. Like people are looking to be happy and they're looking for that in stuff. And stuff doesn't make you happy. Experiences and being true to yourself and knowing what your why is. Like, why do you get up in the morning? Why are you working where you do? Like, that is what, if you answer that question, like, that's what's going to help you figure out your happiness, not going out on a shopping spree and spending money on things that you can't afford because you go buy, that purse or whatever it is. And like people rationalize things. Well, I saw so many people on Instagram have one and they think they can afford it too. Or like, oh, it's my birthday, I should buy one. So you buy one. And then when the credit card bill comes, you really actually don't have the money for it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that joy of buying that item actually makes the cycle even worse. By the time the bill comes, you don't enjoy it and you have those feelings of regret.
Absolutely.
And that's my whole focus is I don't want people to live life with regrets at all.
Yeah.
And so there's this huge pressure though, and social media has made it definitely worse of, everything you look at, like everyone has perfect skin and filters and
it's awful. It's absolutely awful. They've created a monster.
Yeah. I mean, I remember growing up, like it kind of finally came out that, people in the magazines were being touched up, when I was little. And it's just gone to the extreme now because everyone has a camera on their phone and everyone has access to these filters. And so, but is that really what makes you happy? Is that what's really real? it's not. Like it's fake, and there's this false sense of happiness out there. And so you've got to look internal and you've got to look inside. It's the same thing with relationships. So many people like want to be in a relationship, or like there's this stigma if you're single. And if anything, I'm thinking and trying to motivate people to be the exact opposite. Like you can't find happiness with someone else. Like you've
No,
got to be happy with yourself before you can be in a relationship and be happy with someone else.
absolutely. So what would be your ultimate vision for your business, Nicole? Like, do you have a bigger idea or an expansion of what you're doing?
For me, I actually just booked a trip. I'm going to head down to Florida. I would like to have an office in Florida. And there's 2 financial advisors that are looking at selling their practice. And so I would like to start with Florida and then expand across the US with offices across the country. And all the stuff that I'm doing, I'd love to do it even more. And so
That's amazing.
I really do want a national TV show. You know, I had one here that was in Minnesota and Wisconsin. It was a radio show, but I want to do that same thing, but even on a bigger scale. And it's all about changing how people are with their money and helping them be happy. But it's also making change with women and the whole equality piece, and showing and sharing my story that if I can do this as a single mom from nothing, grow a business and have to stop and start all over again and grow a business again, like if I can do this, like anyone can do it.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
inspiring people across the world is really my focus.
That's amazing. So that leads me to the last question. What are the 3 key pieces of advice you would give to other entrepreneurs, and what legacy would you like to leave, or how would you like to be remembered?
So the first piece is that you can have it all. You know, my mom raised me, you know, if you want to be president of the United States, Nicole, you can do it. You just don't rely on anyone. You've got to make it happen for you. But you can be a great parent and a great business owner. Like you can have it all. The second thing is to invest in your team. And as I alluded to earlier, you know, whomever you're working with, those are the people. And if you're owning your own business, like those are the people that are representing you. And so really invest in them. And then the third thing is take risks when you're young.
Yes.
And, because I always remember when I was hesitant to leave Morgan Stanley, there's a CEO that I had met with, and I was just telling her, I was like, gosh, like, I don't know if I should leave. I don't know if I should start my own business. And she's like, Nicole, you're young. Why wouldn't you? She's like, what do you have to lose? Like, you have time on your side if it doesn't work out. And so I just always live by that. It's like, okay. And so I kid with myself. I'm like, okay, you're still young. Like,
Yes.
so go make this happen. And for me, the legacy, you know, I'm not Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I'm not in law. I'm not Madeleine Albright, but making change with how people think about money. You know, I want to change the statistics of how many professional athletes file bankruptcy, people that win the lottery. I want to change across the world how people think about money, how they spend it, and how they are investing their dollars and being smarter and being happy.
Well, that is amazing, Nicole. Thank you so much. And if people would like to connect with you, what are the best platforms to do so?
So they can go to prosperwell.com or NicoleMiddendorf.com, and then LinkedIn. I'm avid on all social media platforms, but LinkedIn is where a lot of the motivational posts and such will be.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And hopefully we can have you back in the future to see where you are in your journey.
Thank you.